right, now I did want to get into this video right here because this is exactly. Hold up, I gotta switch. Okay. Okay. But like I was saying, back to what I was saying. Okay. So I was watching this video. Shout out to Asmongold and Legendary Drops for this video. I don't know how I was watching it. I was on YouTube. It showed up. I clicked on it. And Legendary Drops was able to was reached out to by some Ubisoft employees, and they divulged some information, which basically revealed that it's as we all feared. The pandering, the toxic positivity, not being able to tell somebody that disjoint is trash. If something is trash, all right? There's nothing that can make it better other than admitting that it is trash and then fixing it. When you're in denial, that's how you end up with Concord. Right? Toxic positivity is not a good thing. It's not helping. That is called delusion. Okay? What is wrong with these people? You're ruining my video games. Video games were pure. I come from an age, the 90s. Video games were. Have you ever heard of Rising Zan, the Samurai Gunman? Look that up. Look up Rising Zan, the Samurai Gunman. That's pure gaming right there for you. Right? Right? It makes absolutely no sense if you go and see that game. I think it's one of the first games that had a protagonist that had a sword and gun. Anyways, I'm not. Let's continue. I mean, listen. Delusion is your worst enemy. Accepting that something is wrong and understanding that something is wrong is the only way to fix anything. All right. Now let's check this out. I'm going to say a few comments, and I'm going to give you a real life example of what happens when you pander and you tell somebody that they're doing something good when they really are not. And I'm sorry for the person that I'm going to bring up when I say this, but it's just the truth. We'll get to it when we get to it. Let's jump into this video. Thank you, Asmon. Thank you, Legendary Drops. Let's check it out.
People have wanted me to watch this for a while. Apparently, there's been some Ubisoft devs that have talked behind the scenes about how things are going, and it doesn't seem like it's very good.
Things at Ubisoft are far worse than I ever could have imagined. After my last video chronicling the rise and fall of Ubisoft, I had both current and former Ubisoft developers reach out for comment.
Of course they did.
Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the issues that the studios face today from the perspective of their own employees. Everything from Me Too movement allegations to...
Hold up. Another thing I want to say, Ubisoft, if you're listening, if you by some chance, some miracle of God, you run into this video, how can you create one of the greatest video game characters in Assassin's Creed 2, known as Ezio Auditore da Firenze? How? And give us this crap after? How? And then how are you going to deny listening to the claims of the gamers that put money into your pocket and instead listening to management pandering to 2% of the population? It makes no sense. It's stupid. Anyways, let's continue.
Agenda-driven content.
Well, it wasn't a Me Too movement allegation. Ubisoft went through an entire lawsuit process because of that.
I want to contrast the comments made in these interviews with what we've seen from Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah.
This company has a deep-rooted leadership issue, going as far to think that the vast majority of online criticism is just a toxic minority of gamers.
Of course.
This
Toxic
company
minority.
and its leadership think that they are on the righteous path. Little do
The
they know,
righteous path to
it's a dead
failure.
end.
I That sounds so stupid, but I believe it. And the reason why I believe it is because the CEO cited critic reviews for their games as a barometer for what the game's reception was. Like, I don't want to believe this, but I feel like I have to.
Assassin's Creed Shadows has been steeped in controversy and criticism since its initial reveal. Online discourse surrounding the game has been almost entirely negative, with long.
Also, another thing, you're going to make Assassin's Creed in Japan now? Well, we've been asking for that for, I don't know, since Assassin's Creed 3? By the way, Assassin's Creed 3 was dope with Connor. It was super dope. But I'm just saying, you're too late. We already have Ghost of Tsushima. That's it. It's over for you. This is too late. You entered the Japan party too late. On top of entering the Japan party too late, then you give us this crap. Good job.
Long-term fans of the franchise, general audience, and Japanese audiences up in arms over.
Not to mention the fact that they're in Japan and they put in Chinese architecture. I mean, how stupid can you be? Sorry.
The creative liberties that Ubisoft has taken with the depiction really of Yasuke, the fabled Black Samurai, and feudal Japan. Japanese creators, as well as just random bystanders, have taken to Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube and Reddit, voicing their concerns offended by the game's representation of their history and culture. Inaccuracies like using Chinese architecture instead of Japanese, the legitimacy and relevance of the game's protagonist Yasuke, and even going as far as stealing a flag and imagery from the Sekihara Teppotai, a historical reenactment group where the company had to formally apologize for not asking for permission to use their materials.
This is so stupid.
White people just never stop colonizing. It's just what
Gold is hilarious. White people never stop colonizing.
Bro, we just can't help ourselves.
Oh, Jesus.
Just can't stop.
Let's jump to the information. He's funny, though.
Consultant work for Ubisoft, but
there's no bias. There's no agenda here at all, guys.
Yeah, the DEIE agenda stuff, that needs to get away from video games, man. Y'all ruining
people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai, and that many of the
Thank you to Japanese, Korean, and Chinese developers for giving us what we love.
Online negative comments were written in Japanese, appeared to be roughly translated from English.
True. Actually true. And this is what journalists excel at. Journalists excel at telling half-truths, but focusing on the lie.
Hand-waving the increasingly loud and valid concerns of the Japanese, asserting that it's all made-up outrage. Nothing more than the gamers' war against DEI or inclusivity in video games. I find it all too poetic and predictable for a AAA publisher to...
And another thing, talking about DEI. Listen, there's plenty of diverse characters, right? Right? If you want to tell a story and you want it to be a certain type of character, as long as it makes sense in the story, you will never hear a complaint from us gamers. They will never happen. It's when you shoehorn it in there for no reason at all that we have a problem. Just stop doing it. Unless y'all want to continue to lose millions of dollars. Good job.
To brush off player concerns and use their connections in the media to try to steer public discourse and sentiment into a favorable direction. All of these claims made by the New York Times, as well as other writers, are patently false. You can see
the problem is that I think this is a big issue, is that like traditional like print media is losing a lot of its relevance, and I think it's accelerating that loss. And I think that really like they're getting eaten from like so many different perspectives. Like, for example, people's literacy levels and ability to read information, I think, is going down. Like,
you're absolutely right about that, Asmund. Not only that, people's attention span are so small that even if they could read, they probably won't even read through the whole article. They'll just move on to the next thing. Thank you, social media. Anyways, let's skip ahead to hear some more about what the developers got to say, because that's what I'm mostly interested in. Listen to this crap.
As Asmongold games. They responded saying, at a high level, they rarely talk about it. At a project level, they brush it off as toxic gamer talk. As Asmongold correctly pointed out in a video of his,
Asmongold's eyebrows are hilarious. He talks with his eyebrows.
How about that? How about that? That's crazy. People always wonder, why is it that everybody watches me? This is the reason why. It's because I've been fucking right. Yeah, I've been right.
Toxic positivity that prevents growth.
And also,
of course, it does. It's called denial.
Don't think that
it's called delusion.
I'm being totally honest. I actually don't think that I'm like incredibly intelligent.
I'm gonna give you an example of what happens when you delude yourself into believing something that isn't true. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to bring it up because it's a real life example of what happened to a fighter that I really enjoyed. But unfortunately, her coaches decided to convince her that her stand-up was great. And as soon as this particular fighter decided to fight with stand-up instead of using what made her great in the first place, which was judo, she proceeded to lose. And do you know why? Because her coaches, with toxic positivity, deluded her into believing that her stand-up was great, which it wasn't. If anything, what she should have done is use her stand-up to lead or feint into what she was good at. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And this is why deluding yourself into believing that your game is great when everybody else is telling you that it isn't, and admitting to it and making changes to make it better for the people that are actually going to line your pockets with millions of dollars, is what you should be doing. Instead of brushing it off like it's nothing and just continuing to do what you're doing, that's going to lead you to fail in the long run. And that's why Ubisoft is where it is today.
But what I think that I do have is I have an insanely good memory, and I can make decisions on things based off of more factors than the average person can. And because of that, if I see something like this, I can think of more things in the past, like, oh yeah, this other thing. I put all that together, and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. But this is why people watch the videos. Ego going up, it is, absolutely, but I was right.
I then asked, what about the Japanese community's backlash over Assassin's Creed Shadows? It's obvious that they haven't done their research, and even the smallest details are going to be noticed by a culture that's as proud as the Japanese. Of course. They responded by saying that the criticisms haven't been talked about, and they've only issued demands that we mustn't engage with discussion on that topic publicly.
Just don't talk about it. Problem solved.
Don't talk about it.
Everything that we've said up until this point, all the criticism that we've had over the years for Ubisoft games, even that of the industry itself, has fallen on deaf ears. I don't know if it's sad or if it's somewhat, it's somewhat cathartic to have that validated. I mean, it's the main complaint.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, again, like, you don't have to be a fucking genius to admit this or to acknowledge this. I feel like, again, you know, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I feel like that's how I feel a lot of times saying.
Let's look at this part
with your characters on it, without knowing the cultural relevance of the half-Tory gate.
A half-Tory gate
destroyed in World War II.
Destroyed in World War II.
Do you have any idea?
And that's a promotional item that you get with the game. How insane is that? How offensive.
What's wrong with you? At the end of the day, it all comes down to leadership.
It's actually very easy to understand what's wrong with them. There are people that are bored. They have a tremendous sense of internalized guilt, and they think by doing this kind of stuff, they're being a good person. Once you understand that most people's actions are only taken in order to make themselves feel better or to serve some personal goal, then as soon as you figure that out and you start operating under that pretense, everything else that a person does makes immediate sense. Pepega, I'm helping. Yeah, exactly. It's self-righteousness. Exactly it is.
When you look at Ubisoft's messaging, the lackluster delivery of titles like X-Defiant and Star Wars Outlaws, the inaccuracies and screw-ups with Assassin's Creed Shadows, you see a developer that has no clear plan or vision for what players want, what good games look like, or how to even do their job. I took the time to talk to the Ubisoft developers about workplace culture, about the initiative that they've taken for diversity hiring, and what happens behind the scenes at Ubisoft. And it's wild to see how accurate some of the assumptions that have been made by myself and others. Now, continuing my conversation with one of the developers, I wanted to find more about the workplace structure and management. And seeing as though the company has had initiatives that have been put in place to make the workplace a little bit more diverse, I asked, what benefits have you seen? Is there more diversity in thought, or is it creating a more one-sided environment? They said that so far the initiative hasn't had any impact on the team that I'm a part of. However, it's clear that some topics are taboo.
Right.
What happened is now that people end up in a meeting with HR for trivial stuff, not adding smiley faces to a message or adding an exclamation point at the end of a message because some people are reporting it for harassment.
How crazy is that? For putting an exclamation point at the end of a sentence.
I could easily believe this. 100%. Yeah, for sure.
One of the things that wasn't in your video is that Ubisoft had some controversy during the Me Too period, letting go of a manager in high positions, and some left on their own because they knew they'd be discovered. I then asked, what was the impact of this in the workplace? They responded by saying the editorial direction and overall mindset shifted from the boys club to safe content, reaching for...
Is this a video about Blizzard or Ubisoft?
It's about the industry, man. Look at Concord. Same thing happened.
Hold up. What's this?
Same thing with World of Warcraft. Same thing with Ubisoft. It's everywhere, man.
The idea to have beautiful characters such as Baldur's Gate or Uncharted is met with distrust.
Of course.
The developer shared sentiments saying that safe content also leads to limited opportunities on the gameplay side. Even for Star Wars, we had to work with Disney, which would shut down most attempts at depicting a true criminal underworld with cruelty and drama.
Naturally.
When you put this developer's perspective in line with the recent failures and controversies at Ubisoft or any AAA developer...
So they're basically implying that they probably would have gone farther with Star Wars Outlaw, but they weren't able to because of Disney. I immediately believe that. I do. I think that makes so much sense. Yeah, probably true.
They wanted to make it grittier.
At this point, it all makes sense. An overcorrection in sensitivity brought on
to me, by the way, seems crazy because didn't Disney owns Marvel, right? Like Thanos is probably one of the greatest gray area characters that we've ever had. At least in recent superheroes. I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best, superhero cinema, gray area character. I mean, what the fuck? Why not do that with Star Wars?
Boys club days that many studios experienced during their early years. As such, many games today lack the teeth and grit that players crave because those things are seen as problematic or unsafe to make in the workplace.
Well, the problem also is that you have a workplace that's trying to overcorrect for past sins. So, for example, they're trying to overcorrect for the fact that they got this whole Me Too problem in their company because they had weirdos that were working there. So now it's effectively the players that have to
let the creatives do what they do best, create,
because the company had some sort of internal problem.
You want to know something? If you're a creative and you're allowed to create freely and you're passionate about what you're creating, the chances of it being bad are way smaller than when you have this happen.
Use emojis or exclamation points. You could offend someone. Holy shit.
Yeah.
How soft have we gotten? It reminds
it's
me of
also like that.
We've gotten too soft. I grew up in the 90s. Let me tell you something. If you were growing up in the 90s, everything and anything that any kid could make fun of you, you better believe they are going to do it. That's why we have thick skin. You know, when I was a kid, kids made fun of me for many reasons. Reasons that I do not need to say. Nevertheless, what I did to counteract that was show them that I was better than them in several ways. And even still, they continue to make fun of me. But the difference is they learned to respect me. They made fun of me by that time in a friendly way, no longer as trying to pick on me, because they knew what I could do in many different things. Because I was one of the strongest kids. I was also one of the fastest kids. I could also draw. I was also one of the most flexible kids. So you could only make as much, fun of me to a certain point. Now we can't even be honest with each other. That's the environment we're in. And that's not good for anybody. The truth hurts, sure. But I'd rather you tell me the truth and me able to fix it than me delude myself into believing that everything is fine when it isn't. Because then you're going to end up in trouble.
That's like a huge, that's like a huge indicator. It's like if people are getting called into HR for not using smiley faces or using exclamation marks, think about how painful all the rest of the office experience must.
Watching this made me realize that this has directly affected me in many ways. Or I'm like walking on eggshells when I'm streaming or when I'm doing anything, out of fear of saying the wrong thing because people can't handle it. How sad is that? What happened to the First Amendment? It's ridiculous.
Must be. Because it's not like this is the only manifestation of this degree of mental illness. Absolutely not. It's probably everywhere.
Time where the Helldivers 2 community manager went on a ban spree on their Discord because players were using a throw-up emoji on furry art that was posted in their Discord.
By the way, this is actually true. Helldivers let a moderator on their Discord ban
Skip
people.
ahead some more and hear more from the developers.
Hey, it's Richard here. After years of RPG campaigns, I found something you would absolutely love.
Much about it. They mainly focus behind it. They responded, the fun fact is they don't talk much about it. They mainly focus on the fact that they reach their financial objectives, which are mainly achieved through casual player sales, not the vocal gamer minority that are sick of what you described in your video.
Yep.
Also, something to know is that through the years, the number of management floors has increased to ridiculous amounts. So communication is often blurry unless they come directly from HQ, and even then, it's almost...
So this is kind of what happens, is that I think that like with games, it takes a while for like a company's reputation to be like fully eroded. And like for Ubisoft, for example, I think that like this reputation has been eroded with like, let's say Skull and Bones, or I think there was a game before then, I don't remember which one was, Prince of Persia. And like the reputation isn't really damaged like immediately. It's something that has like a ripple effect. And so it didn't happen and it didn't really affect them until really Star Wars Outlaws, because they came out and they said that Star Wars Outlaws didn't sell very well. So it's very clear that this the idea that there's like a big casual audience that doesn't care about any of these problems, it's very obvious that this is true, but it's also very obvious that this is not always true. And also, even that casual audience will turn on you and will not make purchase decisions based off of different reasons. Like, for example, Concord, or for example, Star Wars Outlaws.
Concord being the most egregious example of what toxic positivity can do. $400 million down the drain on Sony's behalf. Terrible. All right, I'm going to let this continue to play. I got to get some water. I'm talking too much.
Is that, yes, you can rely on them to an extent, but that extent becomes smaller every single day.
Entirely corpo bullshit that isn't useful in the end.
Yeah.
I asked another employee to verify the increase in management at the company, fearing that this is likely one of the biggest issues that's facing the company. Seeing that lack of clear and creative vision, they painted a picture of a company that's not only overrun with management, but that's passively aggressive about removing higher paid and talented employees while slotting in underskilled and unexperienced management at a cheaper rate.
The crazy thing about that is that this is something that happens to seemingly every company nowadays. Like, this isn't even a Ubisoft problem. This is just a corporate problem.
They claim that Ubisoft as an employer shows little regard for their developers. What happens in practice is that they essentially push out senior engineers, promoting junior engineers to senior roles after just a few years of experience, oftentimes with experience in just one engine. Meanwhile, experienced developers with far broader skill sets are being overlooked. This constant cycle of turnover with inexperienced leaders leads to noticeable drops in quality, with bugs appearing in their games. The passionate, dedicated developers leave, while those who are just going through the motions stay behind. This doesn't just affect the technical quality of their games, but also impacts the design and creativity. For instance, you'll find designers working on FPS mechanics who have never played an FPS game before.
I've heard enough. I've heard enough. Thank you, Asmongold. Thank you, Legendary Drops, for this amazing reaction and incredible video. I will be putting links down below for you guys to check both out. Ultimately, after I watched this, I realized how it's been affecting me, and I'm going to change the way I am on this channel. I'm just going to speak the truth and how I feel, and just be as raw and real as I could be to me. You know what I'm saying? Because this right here made me realize that I was falling off. I was letting myself be affected by this, walking on eggshells, and that's just not the way to be. Hopefully, if you're feeling the same, just be you, man. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And if you feel the way I feel, let me know in the comments below, because this is insane. This got to stop. You're ruining entertainment with this. We already get enough with it in real life media. When we go see something entertaining, why do you think Deadpool and Wolverine did so great in the movie theaters? Because they gave us what we wanted. Just do right by the people that support your brand. Screw the executives. Screw everybody else. Listen to the passionate people that actually care about your characters, your stories, your product, and success will be there for you. That's all I have to say.